how to leave suffering and attend bliss and end birth and death and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo saranto suchedoye olahuri samyao sanputoshi.
Namo saranto suchedoye olahuri samyao sanputoshi.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Venerable Master, Dharma friends, good afternoon, everybody. Good evening to all of you. My name is Heng Sure, and we are here on Sunday, January 10th, Saturday, January 9th, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, to look into the Flower Garland Sutra again. So glad that you could make the time to join in, and also glad that we have translators into Chinese who are working hard here in the Gold Coast, translators into Vietnamese who are working hard there in the Bay Area. And we will be looking into a fascinating piece of the Flower Garland Dharma today. Let's get started. I want to use the time well because we've got a lot to cover. And we'll come back to page 64 when we're done with the invocation. Now, last week, because we were involved in the Amitabha session at City of 10,000 Buddhas, we combined our lecture with a Dharma talk on the Pure Land and also the Avatamsaka Sutra. And I got feedback that says it wasn't all that successful. The Sutra lecture was half-baked and the topic didn't mix, and so the Dharma talk was cut short. So sometimes the food tastes good, sometimes you just kind of choke it down. So this week we can spend all our time looking at the Flower Garland Sutra, and at the end I'm going to lead everybody, I hope everybody, do you hear that part? I'm going to lead everybody in singing a song of enlightenment, the Zheng Dao Ge. And don't be alarmed, don't be intimidated. It's easy and it's kind of fun. Because our topic today is mountains and nature, I picked out of the Zheng Dao Ge the verses that pertain to mountains and nature and animals as well. So we'll get to that in just a minute. Here we go. That's our melody. We're going to chant 7 times the Chinese invocation to invite the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the Flower Garland Sutra Assembly to come and join. Here we go. Namo Da Fang Guang Ho Huan Jing Huan Hai O Pu Sa Namo Da Huan Jing O Pu Sa Huan Jing O Pu Sa Huan Y'all appreciate my Dharma wheel banjo. There's only 2 of these in the world. Back to page 64. All right. Quick summary. Flower Garland Sutra. 10 practices chapter. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. 10 stages chapter. Talking about a bodhisattva. 10th stage. Soon we're going to finish the prose and embark on the verses, which is quite long. We're finding out about how the bodhisattva's knowledge, what the bodhisattva's knowledge contains, how it functions, how expansive his knowledge of Dharma. And this chapter is full of analogies. It's full of, can't know this, so we take something that we know, and by familiarizing ourselves with this image, we get a sense of what this might be. So even the name of this stage is an analogy. Fa Yun Di. It's the stage of the cloud of Dharma, the Dharma cloud. And is it a cloud of Dharma? No, it's just as extensive and spreading and nurturing as a cloud. This Bodhisattva's knowledge of Dharma is not far from a Buddha's knowledge of Dharma. He's about to become a Buddha, should he choose to do so. But as we're finding out, many Bodhisattvas on the 10th stage stop there, because the next step is perfection, is the end of the path, and they want to stay and take care of living beings with their knowledge. So it's a very interesting state of mind. And even though we're talking about this, in this case, this is a template, it's an exemplar, it's a hypothetical bodhisattva meant to inspire us. He's a paradigm bodhisattva, right? Bodhisattva paradigm. Still, none of this at all is apart from or separate from or divorced from a human experience that you could have, that I could have. It's rooted in, and it never loses touch with real people doing real people doing real things, like sneezing into their microphones. That caught me by surprise. Sorry about that. So the sutra's bodhisattva is a human, rooted in human experience. Okay, that's our quick introduction. So we're finding out what the bodhisattva's knowledge is like, and we're going to back up just a touch to this passage right before, which begins with Fozhi Ci Di Ci Pusa Mohasa Shi Di Heng Xiang, or Xing Xiang Heng Xiang. We're going to start right there. Right? Are we ready? We've covered this before, but I want to to give the analogies for nature. This helps. This is where it starts. Here we go. 佛子慈菩萨摩诃萨实地横向，次第现前，只能取入一切智智。譬如阿耨大池出四大河，其河流注，遍延菩提，其无尽界，复更增长，乃至入海，令其充满。Disciples of the Buddha, when the attributes of the 10 stages practices appear before this Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, in sequential order, then he or she can approach mastery of the wisdom of wisdoms. This is similar to Lake Anavatapta, the source of 4 massive rivers. As these rivers flow forth to fill up Jambudvipa, they never run dry, but instead keep increasing until they enter the ocean and keep it full. That's a typo there. Keep it full. Okay. Notice my desktop here is a picture of people entering the mountains. This happens to be Turtle Mountain in Oregon. But I wanted a natural setting for what we're going to talk about today. Bodhisattva's knowledge, and the sutra says it's like Anavatapta, the lake that means no affliction. Actually, it's no heat, no bothersome troubles in the body and mind. 无热和无热焰，无焰热和 Anavatapta. So this is it a real lake? Yeah, it's a real lake. But if you want to see the Buddhist version of it, one needs to have his or her eyes open, spiritual vision. And does that mean it's not really there? Yeah, it's really there, but we can't see it. If you want to get a sense of what that's like, a beautiful bird, just an incredible bird with a plumage tail, with a magnificent crest, colors that dazzle the eye, lands on a branch just across the way. And what do? You pull out your phone camera. You pull out your camera, and your camera looks like this, right? And you try to grab a photo of the bird, and you run back to your friends and show them, and they go, "It's too small, I can't see it. Is that little thing? Yeah, that little thing there on the branch," right? It's not that you can't see that wonderful bird, but you just didn't have the right camera. You didn't have a bird lens to bring the camera close to the eye of the viewer. So Lake Anavatapta is really there, but we don't have the right wisdom lens to see it. It's not that it's not there. So, okay. In the Buddha's geography, in the Buddha's description of how the world is, he says this lake is a source of the 4 great rivers. What do those 4 rivers do? They feed all of the smaller rivers, and the smaller rivers and the creeks and the freshets and the little rivulets that nourish all of Jambudvipa, our continent. Okay, so the water that keeps us alive comes out of Lake Anavatapta, he says, and it's endless. It's inexhaustible, is that good word. It's unending. It keeps on flowing. So that's Anavatapta. Wu Re, He Hu, He Hu, right? Wu Re, I said He, it's Hu. It's a lake. And so it's a central lake, and we actually, you remember, we dug up pictures of Lake Anavatapta. There it is right there. And it swirls, and there's a dragon who lives there, who is one of the 10 kings of dragons as well. So Lake Anavatapta. And so, I've been reading about these. Do I know about this? Do I see it? No, I don't. I'm giving you the lore, L-O-R-E. I'm sharing the stories that I've heard. And in the Avatamsaka, because it is called the Fa Jie Zhi Jing, the Sutra of the Dharma realm, the Sutra of the, if we had to find an English equivalent for Dharma realm is probably universe, Sutra of the Universe. So it contains lots of references to natural phenomena. Talks a lot about planets, talks a lot about galaxies, talks a lot about mountains, islands. It even has a chapter called Where Bodhisattvas Live, one of the chapters of the Avatamsaka. And in that chapter, it even goes on to name islands and mountains that also really exist for our eyes to see with those names, like Putoshan. It says Guanyin Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara lives on Putoshan. Putoshan is an actual pair of islands in the South China Sea. So there's this dance. There's always this. Today we're going to run into Xueshan. Xueshan is what? Himalayas, the snowy mountains. And so ever since I started reading the Avatamsaka and diving into this text, I've done this kind of 2-foot do-si-do with things that I can see and things I can't see, but the Buddha says are really there. And anyone in the past, the great cultivators of the past, agreed, yes, there it is. You didn't see it? Oh, it's right there in front of you. Mount Sumeru is an example. The polar mountain. It's also mentioned in one of our 10 today. And so much of the Buddha's teaching is set upon Mount Sumeru, the polar mountain, the central mountain. And yet, where is it? Well, there. Anyone who wakes up says, it's not that it wasn't there, it's that you couldn't see it. Okay. So, another analogy. Are you had enough analogies? Infrared light. Our eyes can't see it until we get a lens that is sensitive to infrared light, and oh my goodness, there it was. In the electromagnetic spectrum of things like, microwave waves, okay? Your modem, your phone, picks up this device right here again in my hands, picks up all these different waves that are really there, but I can't see them. What brings you your Twitter feed? What brings you your YouTube videos? What brings us this broadcast today? You're really there, but we can't see it. Similar kind of thing. So there's always this kind of back and forth, right? Okay. Lake Anavatapta, really there, but we can't see it. Feeds the waters that keep Jambudvipa, a continent that we live on, but we can't see it. Keeps it moist and fertile, and keeps our bodies going. Just like Anavatapta. What is just like Anavatapta? Okay, so we got the analogy here. The attributes of the 10 stages practices come in sequential order. Okay, I just wanted to point that out. 10 of them. From the stage of happiness all the way up to the Dharma cloud. Each of these 10 stages have practices that develop one on the other. When the Bodhisattva gets to the 10th, it's because he or she has done all 10 in order. Now, I've heard people would ask Shifu, do you have to go 1, 2, 3, 4? Or can you go from 1 to 10 or 1 to 8? And he would say, Fa Wu Ding Fa. There are no fixed dharmas. It's rare, and then why would you want to? Isn't that greed? Isn't that just wanting to swallow the food before you even taste it? Why would you want to swallow the date whole without knowing how sweet dates are? Chewing it a little bit, right? So, we're just in this achievement mode. We are goal-oriented people, and so we want to get there quick. So, that's the Bodhisattva is advised, is encouraged. The model is set to go 1 to 10. So it emphasizes Xing Xiang or Heng Xiang Ci Di, the sequence, the order of the 10 stages, and all their practices. Because, again, let's say it again. The Bodhisattva is here not to win. He's here not to get famous as a 10th stage Bodhisattva. Every step of the way is motivated by a wish to help, to heal, to save, to rescue, to take across, that's the language they use, others. He's not doing it for himself. It's too hard. It's too painful. You have to endure too much blowback, too many setbacks, right? Too many failures that you pick yourself up and start over again. That's the Bodhisattva path as well. It's not glamorous at all. It's really hard work, but compared to ignorance, it's the game. The only game in town the Bodhisattva wants to, it's the life the Bodhisattva wants to lead. Because there is success at every step. And staying on the path, you're in tune to the rhythm of the Tao, of the way things really work. And that sight of the mechanics of heaven and earth and humanity working is just so satisfying. We were listening earlier today to Ernie and Barbara Waugh, two Dharma friends of mine whom I've known before I became a monk for 40 plus years. They told stories today in Madalena Tan's series of stories about Master Hua, and Ernie told a story that I actually hadn't heard before, but I was there and saw. I saw the event, but I didn't know Ernie's experience of it. And we were both, I was a monk at the time, he was a layman, at the 水陆空法会 1987 Water, Land, and Air Soul Mass at City of 10,000 Buddhas. There were 100 monks, nuns, and lay people from China who had come to, at the invitation of Master Shenhua, and also Master Mingyang, and also Master Zhenchan, who were basically the organizers. Mingyang, Daheshang, was the abbot of Guangji Si in Beijing and Longhua Si in Shanghai. And Master Zhenchan was the abbot of Yufo Si, Jade Buddha Monastery in Shanghai. They were well known and well respected. And when they put out the invitation, monks and nuns from all over China and lay people agreed to come to America. And oh my goodness, it was the first time that any robed monastic had left China since 1949 through the front door to come to America. It was historic. It was amazing. Plus, it was the first time the Water, Land, and Air ceremony had happened in North America at the traditional scale of 5 masters and in the formal way. So, Ernie told a story that at the end, everybody was really tired, and because it had been a week, of hard work, and in order to celebrate the successful conclusion, there was a liberating life ceremony, and somebody had bought a bunch of pigeons to liberate, and they were outside what we now call the DRBA guest building, the oldest building at CTTB. They were in these wooden cartons, wooden crates, right, full of living birds. And when you liberate life, you do the ceremony, and then you, at the right moment, you open the crates, and the birds fly out. It's a really dramatic moment. They're free. They were heading for, did I say pigeons? Probably it was chukars and pheasants and what other game birds did they release? So there they were. And Ernie's job was to open the crates at the right moment. So he described today his experience of getting the signal and opening the crates. And all the birds flapped out at once. And of course, there's 50 or 60 pigeons and pheasants and chukars and these game birds that were usually used for skeet shooting. Bang, release. They were going to be shot out of the sky by sportsmen with shotguns or put in a cook pot. And they were free to live in the game preserve of City of 10,000 Buddhas. How excited these birds were, how thrilled to have a second chance at life, right? And how terrified they were. And he said the birds swirled up in a big cloud and then came down and landed on Master Hua. The birds came down and landed on Shifu, and he had every arm, every spare inch for bird feet space on his body. It was another bird. Shifu was covered in birds. And Ernie said that could only happen if the birds sensed no danger, no fear, and that somebody was a safe refuge, right? I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And so he told the story, and then he came back and added a line, which I really appreciated. He said he was so impressed because what Master Hua did with the birds that were landing on him was he looked at every single one that had landed on him. He didn't just go, hee, ha, ha, birds, He looked at every bird carefully. And Ernie said he got the impression, of course, what was Shifu doing, don't know, but he got the strong impression that Shifu was sizing up every bird's causes and conditions, checking out the individual living being currently in a bird's body, right? And was judging its potential for awakening and what it needed to be crossed over. So, of course, that was Ernie's projection, but hearing that, I completely resonated. That's exactly the kind of thing that Shifu would do, right? That was a living being on its way to awakening, currently in a human body, in a bird's body. So, here's the Bodhisattva, who is what? His job, our 10th stage Bodhisattva, is to use whatever expedient method will work to help that being awake, individually, right? And oh my goodness, I was just explaining to Sam today, the reward and how hard it is. The context of this was lots of mistakes, lots of failures, quote, and then occasional successes, and how sweet it is when you see little steps forward. Currently, we've got cockatoos, sulfur-crested cockatoos, very, very large, white, pure white parrot family birds with a yellow crest on their head, who have discovered Paramita House where I live. And last year at this time you'd see one every 6 months. Now there are between 8 and more who come every day. And every one of these birds is different. I can pick them out. They look so much alike, although some have distinguishing characteristics, but it's by their behavior. And what I've seen is the little success is whether or not they're willing to come and eat sunflower seeds from my hand. Right? And of the 8 that came yesterday, there are 2, only 2, that are willing. And the others treat me like a danger, right? And if I take one step, they back one step. Take another step, they back off one step. But there are 2 that land directly opposite my door, a screen door, and look in. And they're here. And these 2 black eyes are like watching me, and hopeful. And so if I come out and I have some sunflower seeds in my hand, put it down, and I'll be reciting the Great Compassion Mantra or Amitabha's name, Namo Amitofo, and the bird will take. Cockatoos walk really funny. They walk up and they start eating sunflower seeds. First they nip my finger, to see if that's edible, and then they go for the sunflowers. And the fun part is offering it to bird number 3, who is too shy, too unfamiliar with people, and watching that bird watch the other 2 happily getting sunflower seeds out of my hand, and watching them try 2 steps over and then reach out carefully, grab a seed and pull back and put their crest up in case I decided to challenge, right? And then they relax and come back for one more. So bit by bit, and of course, mindful that there are people who would say, bad idea, you don't want to get them used to people. They get used to people, they can go find the wrong person and get hurt. Well, mindful of that. But I think the interaction between human and bird, when it's benevolent, when it's feeding, is wholesome and worthwhile. And these birds are very, very sensitive to my intention. All I would have to do to clear the deck of birds would be to move fast, any kind of fast move, or the slightest gesture that goes out toward them, like reaching out, they're gone. Their big white wings spread, and away they go. So with this in mind, and kind of trying to get into the mentality of the birds, trying to work within the parameters they give me, it's so delightful to be able to say, sunflower seeds, namo amitofo, come and get a treat, have these incredibly alive, sensitive, wild birds sharing a meal, is really, really fun. And along with the cockatoos, there are the currawongs, and along with the currawongs, there are the kookaburras, and along with the kookaburras, today we had a magpie checking things out, and the lorikeets, and the 3 kinds of pigeons, and the bush turkeys that come every day. So each one an individual species with its different interactions and its different qualities. Yeah. So I appreciate the Bodhisattvas in the sutra, the Bodhisattva who uses these practices in sequence to approach the mastery of the wisdom of wisdoms. And why does he want to do this? He wants to do that so he knows how to approach living beings. Next chunk. 佛子菩萨以耳从菩提心流出善根大愿之水，以色摄法充满众生，无有穷尽，复更增长，乃至入于一切智海，令其充满。Disciples of the Buddha, the Bodhisattva is that way as well. From his initial resolve for Bodhi, he brings forth the waters of wholesome qualities and vast vows, and uses the 4 dharmas of attraction to fill sentient beings endlessly. The water keeps increasing until it enters the ocean of omniscience, keeping it full. Okay, analogy. Lake Anavatapta, the Bodhisattva. So what is if you take the lake as the source of the waters that feed the world, what is the equivalent on the other side of the analogy? The Dharma is the Bodhi resolve. Putishin, that is key. That is so essential, and it comes back over and over and over as the source. And that source is, hold on here, there we are. All right. So the source of the great vows of the Bodhisattva and wholesome qualities, good roots, qualities of goodness, and the 4 dharmas of attraction have now come up in the 10th stage a lot. We didn't see them much previously, so the Bodhisattva uses generosity, kind speech, gentle speech, speech that is easy to hear, also cooperation, working together, and service as the things that bring him close. So if you can find a way to give to others that is genuine and is timely and helpful, not a burden, living beings respond, right? If you speak to them in a gentle voice, I use tone of voice a lot with the birds. And I watch on Instagram, I have on my Instagram three people in particular who are in Australia. Let's see, one's here in Currumbin, two are down in Sydney. They also interact with cockatoos and lorikeets and kookaburras, and they lead the way. They show me how it's done. Each of them speaks in a gentle voice. You could call them bird whisperers, I guess, like the dog whisperers, and horse whisperers, and that whispering part is part of it, which is to say you know how to speak in a way that when the animal, when the bird, when the living being hears it, they feel the vibrations behind the words. Certainly, they're not distinguishing the grammar that you use. Are you speaking, with an Aussie accent? Can they understand my mid-American accent? Am I speaking Mandarin or Spanish? They don't care about that. They're picking up the vibrations. And so that second one, kind words. Then cooperation, 同事, is you pitch in. You share the work. So the burden is easier on that living being. And then the last one is you serve. You put yourself in a position to supply what is needed to help that living being's life go well, right? So those are the four gathering in dharmas, and four dharmas of attraction. And it's interesting that our bodhisattva here, those are pointed out over and over. And the bodhi resolve, that putishin, the bodhi mind, is the thing that produces the wish to use those dharmas over and over. And you compare that to what? You compare that to the way I lived before I met Buddhism, which was me and mine, or we, us, and ours, exclusively, right? Me and mine. I live for me, and get out of my way, and gotta look after old number one. And even that is a positive expression of it. What's the negative expression of that? You robbed me. It was rigged. You stole it. You cheated. You lied, right? That's the yin negative side of me and mine. Looking after old number one is a sense of having been victimized or abused or looked down upon, which is so sad, how all the afflictions arise from that sense of me in the middle, I'm the only one, which from the Buddhist point of view is simply not seeing it straight. It's not how it is. And if you proceed from a non-dharma principle, not how it is, the further we go, the further away we go, the further we get from the truth, which is complete interpenetration and connection with all living things. So choose the path of wisdom or the path of ignorance. All right. Did you want to, just for fun? Here we go. Here's the cockatoo. Everybody see? We'll bring up our, optimize. There we go. You ready? Here's the friend I was talking about. Okay, he trusts me a little bit. So he thinks, all right, I'll give it a shot. Try it. One. Nip. Sunflower seeds taste pretty good. Namo Amitofo. So that's a start, right? The giving the dharmas of attraction. Generosity wins the day. So, like the lake fills the rivers that feed, that nourish and nurture and moisten the world, Likewise, the Bodhi resolve has waters of good roots, vast vows, and the 4 dharmas of attraction. And it fills living beings endlessly. Okay, so far so good. We're moving on now to the section we read last week, which was 10 mountains. This is our second nature analogy. Okay? And I want to point out that this pops up all the time in the Avatamsaka Sutra, the Flower Garland Sutra, is references to the natural world and the more than humans, the non-humans, meaning animals, ghosts, spirit beings like yakshas and gandharvas and asuras, right? And then the devas as well. And then the sages, the sound hearers, the voice hearers, Prachika Buddhas, Bodhisattvas and Buddhas. So of course, the sutra was spoken back in 2,500 years ago, but it comes to us with enough intact that we can refer to it as historical document, right? And what does it refer to? Does it refer to bandwidth? Does it refer to stock markets? Does it refer to radio waves? It's a pre-virtual world. It refers to the features of nature. Like what? Like oceans, like mountains, like lakes, like animals, like valleys, like flowers, like trees, okay? A lot. So it's nice that we share that in common with the Buddha of 2,500 years ago, is the nature's context, the ecosystem of the planet that is still intact enough to recognize, right? So we have to hang on to the planet through awareness and coming awake to the treasury of nature that still feeds us and hosts us, not let it vanish on our watch. So here's one of those. Here's one, the mountains. Ready? I'll read them again. They have funny names for Chinese readers as well. Here we go. 佛子菩萨实地，因佛智故而有差别。如因大地有十山王，何等为十？所谓雪山王、香山王、比陀利山王、神贤山王、有千陀山王、马尔山王、尼门陀罗山王、舍揭罗山王、季多摩地山王、须弥路山王。Okay. Disciples of the Buddha, we can make distinctions between the Bodhisattva's 10 stages using the aspect of the Buddha's wisdom. Just as from the earth come the 10 kings of mountains, which 10? They are King of Mountains Snow, King of Mountains Fragrance, King of Mountains Vaidari, King of Mountains Spiritually Immortal, King of Mountains Yuganjdara, and that's a mistake. That should be a J in there, not an M. King of Mountains Horseear, King of Mountains Nimindara, King of Mountains Chakrabada, King of Mountains Ketumati, and King of Mountains Sumeru. Okay, list of 10. We get lists of 10 a lot in the sutra. What follows are descriptions of each one, brief descriptions of each of the 10. And what pops up, I'll give, so folks get a sense of the bigger context here. Following the mountains and the 10 descriptions that we're going to launch through here, we get oceans, 10 qualities of the ocean, and so forth. These 10 nature reference are, in each case, it says, just like this mountain has these qualities, so too does the Bodhisattva on the first stage, and then Aparamita as well, have these qualities. Just like Mountain King Fragrance, so too the Bodhisattva on the second stage has these qualities, right? So we're reviewing the 10 stages using a mountain, a famous mountain, as the referent. Okay? That's what's going on here. And like I said, nature pops up in the Avatamsaka. And it's a very interesting nature. I wish I could, like I just showed a video of a sulfur-crested cockatoo to illustrate living beings and their specific needs and qualities. I wish I could, for every one of you listening, for all of us, show a video, I'm on a computer, right? Even better if we could do it in person, of the 3D, 24/7, 6 senses, with consciousness in 18 realms, reality of these mountains. I wish I could take them off the page where it's two-dimensional, it's black ink on white page, if it were a book. It's images happening in the left or right brain here. I wish I could go from that to the way I think the Buddha gave us the sutra, which is immersed in reality. Somebody is saying, oh, Dharma Master, you're just talking about AI, right? You're just talking about immersive, just put on the goggles and you can go into alternate realities. Yeah. But I want the real thing because it's still there. It's still there. The forests on these mountains, the snow on these mountains, springtime on these mountains, right? Dry qualities on these mountains when there's a drought. I really wish we could go into every sense impact of these mountains to give people a sense of how the sutra, I think, is meant to come alive. Marty Verhoeven, former Bhikshu Heng Chao, and I had an opportunity to take a step closer to that on a pilgrimage because we were outdoors. We lived outdoors for years and opened the sutra every night. And as Master Hua said, what I want you to do is to have the experiences that you encounter every day on the highway come alive in the principles of the sutra. And I know that can happen. I want to be able to make it happen for everybody listening, right? So, King of Mountains, snow. Let's move in. Here we go. 佛子如雪山王，一切药草显在其中，取不可尽。菩萨所住欢喜地，亦复如是。一切世间经书，其义文颂咒术，显在其中，说不可尽。Disciples of the Buddha, just as the King of Mountains, snow, has an endless supply of every medicinal herb. The Bodhisattvas abiding upon the stage of happiness is the same, with its endless quantity of mundane books and treatises, arts and skills, texts and verses, mantras and incantations. Okay, so analogy, right? We're into nature analogies to show us what? What are we talking about? We're talking about 10th stage Bodhisattva, what he knows, what she knows. So the sutra gives us something familiar to point to something we can't really know, which is exactly how much wisdom and knowledge the Bodhisattva has. So just as, here's the first half of the analogy, just like Xue Shan Wang, king of mountain snow, what about it? Medicinal herbs. Second half of the analogy, likewise, the Bodhisattva on the stage of happiness, one Siddhi, first stage, first of 10, we're going to get all 10, is like that too. Like what? Like the herbs on the mountain, with its endless quantity of worldly books and treatises, arts and skills, texts and verses, mantras, incantations. Okay. All right. Last week we talked about how traditional medicine comes from nature and you can recognize it. Such, for example, drinking Chinese herb formulas the traditional way. Because people pretty much don't want that smell in their kitchen perfuming entire house when you boil Chinese herbs in a yaba shifu, right? The traditional pot, boy, the smell when you put those herbs that the Chinese herbalist gives you into the pot and boil them down. 3 bowls of water boil down to 1 bowl of water. It takes about 2 hours if you do it at a steady heat. That smell, unforgettable. If when we have had some wonderful, kind-hearted herbalists help the monks at the monastery over the years, and you go to the herbalist, they take your pulse, they look at your tongue, they ask you what the problem is, and then they go to their shelves, and they pull out the drawers, put it all together, wrap it up in white paper, give it to you. Take it home, dump it in the yaba shifu, in the medicine pot, and keep it boiling for long enough for 3 cups of water, 3 bowls of water to go down to 1 bowl, which is what you're going to drink. Anybody who comes into the monastery that day and the next day goes, "Who's sick?" They say, "Who's sick? Somebody sick? Who are you boiling the herbs for?" Oh, it's such an unforgettable smell. And different formulas smell differently. Whenever, what was it? There was one particular ingredient. Was it he shou wu, or was it dangshan or something? There was one that when it was in the formula didn't smell good. It smelled really strong, and that fragrance would linger, right? If it's a formula, sometimes the formulas smell kind of sweet if it's got lots of dangui or what is licorice? Gancao. It's got gancao in it, licorice. It smells kind of nice. But ordinarily it's kind of like, whoa, somebody's sick, they're boiling herbs. For the most part, Chinese herbalists here in Australia, they know that nobody's going to want to get that pot and boil up stuff. So they've found alternate ways to deliver the herbs. Now, these days, they are pre-boiled, and they come down to you in little black pellets, little BBs, and you swallow 25 or 30 of them. And they're coated in coating that's not bad tasting at all, and no smell, right? I know in Taiwan there's a new method whereby in the back of the herbalist shop there are people boiling the herbs, and so when he gives them to you, once he prescribes the formula, he gives you a little pouch of liquid, and you take it home, or it's even dried and then powdered, pre-boiled, dried and powdered, and the efficacy is the same. There was something about those old Chinese formulas. When they're done, they hand you a bowl of hot liquid, and you take it down, and it's bitter. Oh, it's bitter to the max, incredibly bitter. But you definitely feel like you're getting better fast. You say, it better be worth it. That was so bitter. You know, it seems like that method of drinking the hot liquid right out of the pot acts faster than the dried or powdered little BBs or liquid in a plastic bag that you put and take it home and put in the freezer. Because usually you get 10 doses, right? You have to do it for 10 days or 7 days. So there's different delivery methods nowadays. But where do the herbs come from? They come from nature. They come from the mountains. Oh yeah, they do. And herbalists in the past, just like herbalists in the present, have to go out on the mountain and find the plants. Find them. I'll never forget, oh my goodness, my very first trip to Sichuan, to Western China. Sichuan is as far away from the capitals of Beijing and Shanghai as Phoenix is from Washington, D.C. It's a pretty good analogy, it's just about that far. Sichuan is the Wild West. Actually, Yunnan is the Wild West, but Sichuan it borders with Tibet, has a boundary, and I was there with the monks and nuns and lay people to do a pilgrimage up to Emei Shan, Mount Emei, which is the traditional home of Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Pushen Pusa. And we did 3 steps, 1 bow up the steep steps to Jianding and the mountains, the monasteries on Emei Shan. And of course, 3 steps, 1 bow, you're going very slowly. 1, 2, 3, bow, stand up, 1, 2, 3. And we're going up steps. And actually we weren't going to Jianding, we were going to Wanniansi, 10,000-year monastery. And along the steps are vendors and Etsy, right, shops, which is to say, maybe at home you live in a forest and you can gather all the special herbs. Well, these vendors did that, and then they put their special herbs on the little racks and the hooks and the stands on their little cart, which they haul up halfway up the stairs to the top of Wanniansi, and then they settle in and sell it. So we bowed by all the herb sellers on the road, on the steps up to Wanniansi, 10,000 years monastery. And now, of course, I should have been no different than bowing through, the streets of San Francisco, right, which we did, or the fields of, where Half Moon Bay or something like that. But it wasn't. It was Chinese mountain outside in Sichuan province, the home of Samantabhadra. So I was looking left, I was looking right, I was noticing. I was not supposed to be noticing. I was noticing. We bowed by these incredible herb sellers. Bats pressed flat. You want a flattened bat available for sale, transparent? There you go. You got your flattened bats to buy. Oh, mushrooms is bigger than your head. And all these strange and bizarre herbs and roots and plants, and yes, indeed, animals and insects and birds that were available from these vendors. And somehow my impression was that everything in Sichuan grows bigger than anywhere else. They also had like melons and things like cauliflower, and they were huge, absolutely huge. Sichuan is a very fertile place. And realizing that there were herbs there that probably don't grow in the U.S. However, in Australia, who knows what grows in Australia? Well, some people do. The Chinese herbalists and doctors who came to Australia were thrilled to find out all the rare and wonderful things that grow here. So I remember looking, when I first became aware of the materia medica, right? The 那个药品, 药草, 中药的资料, the materials for Chinese medicine. There was stories about the rarest of the rare of herbs. And Shifu, of course, Manchuria, Dongbei, being right up by Korea and Russia up there, there are certain herbs that grow only up there that are really rare, such as ginseng, rensheng, right? Gaolishen, hongshen, Korean ginseng, red ginseng, the so powerful ginseng that they say if you, the lore, the stories about ginseng go on and on and on. There's incredible stories about the root itself and its properties and qualities. And of course, it looks like a human, right? Really valuable ginseng. There were some ginseng roots that if you found them and they were big enough and complete enough, you could take them to the emperor and offer them to the emperor, because the story was that ginseng could prolong your life. If you were sick and you had a bao bei, you had a treasure root, it could keep you alive, they said. So it was a tremendous, if you were just a peasant who lived in the mountains, you were a hermit, and all you did was chase ginseng your whole life. Ordinarily, you wouldn't get close to the emperor, right? But if you had one of these bao bei, you could. How did they catch these? How did they find these incredible roots? Well, the story goes that ginseng, when it's like this, glows in the dark. It's radioactive. It puts off a bioluminescence of some sort. And so ginseng hunters go out at night, and they have special equipment. They have arrows and a bow, and the arrow is equipped with a red tail, a red ribbon on it. And so the hunters go out in the mountains, and they have to know the right mountains. Like what? Like Xue Shanwang, right? Like King of Mountains, snow. So what do? They go out at night, and when they spot that purple golden glow over there under the tree in the dark, they take their bow and arrow with a special rigged ribbon and go and shoot it at the root, and then come back the next day and look for the red tail. And if they're lucky, where the arrow shot in the dark, if they dig around, they will find the root that they shot at night because it was glowing with bioluminescence. What's the problem here? Well, the really, really special ginseng roots could pick themselves up and walk away, plant themselves down again. These are the stories they tell about ginseng. And as I looked into this, I discovered, gee whiz, wow, I wonder, does it only grow in that part of the world, like redwoods only grow along the coast of Northern California and Oregon? So I looked into it, and sure enough, America has its own special ginseng. It is not Korean style, Manchurian style red ginseng. It's called Hua Qi Shen, Stars and Stripes, the starry flag ginseng. What is the starry flag? It's the red, white, and blue, the American flag, because the best ginseng in the world of what is called Hua Qi Shen, American ginseng, grows in Wisconsin. Yes, along with the cheese, right? Along with the Green Bay Packers. So that's right. And there are stories in America. If you have a land that can grow Hua Qi Shen, you don't tell anybody, because people will come along and poach it and sell it to Chinese herbalists who know how valuable it is. It also grows in West Virginia, if I'm not mistaken, in the Appalachians, but Wisconsin, for some reason, has the very best climate for growing Stars and Stripes ginseng, right? American ginseng. Different medicinal qualities, different claims about it, but it is valuable. Not as valuable as red ginseng, Korean ginseng, because I have seen because Master Hua was revered by disciples east and west. So one of the kinds of offerings that monks can accept is medicine. And indeed, some people, knowing where Shifu came from and wishing him long life, brought some 宝贝, 人参宝, some treasure roots, and Shifu would occasionally show them to us. And my goodness, if they didn't look sentient, with 2 legs and sometimes arms. And there's lots and lots and lots of stories. Our late dear friend, Bill Brevort, was on the trail of excellent ginseng. He was an importer of herbs, East Earth herb, and Bill and Peggy built their farm in Oregon around Chinese herbs. And Bill would, when people would come and wanted to learn from him as a teacher of Chinese herbs, he would introduce them to a certain root and say, well, if you have affinities with this root, it will pick you. And then you can eat a little bit of it every now and then, and just a tiny bit, and it will develop your spirituality and your wisdom. And there are people who found their root, right? So deep, deep stories. Oh my goodness. Where does it come from? Disciples of the Buddha. Just as the King of Mountains snow has an endless supply of every medicinal herbs, the Bodhisattvas abiding on the stage of happiness is the same, with an endless quantity of mundane books and treatises, arts and skills, texts and verses, mantras, incantations. So, just like, right, our Himalaya mountains, snowy mountains, just like that, where are we here? Here we go. King of Mountains, there it is. Just like that mountain produces herbs, so does the first stage, 初地, 欢喜地, have treatises, stories, mantras, incantations, teachings, endlessly, right? Here is a Chinese commentary. This is Master Chengguan, says, there are lots of medicinal herbs on Himalaya Giriraja, the King of Mountains, Himalaya, which can cure the manifold illnesses. There's no end to those herbs. It's just like the Dharma medicine, the sage's wisdom and Dharma medicine of the first stage, Wanshidi, which is endless in its function. What does it do? It breaks apart ignorance and surpasses all the previous stages. Okay, all the different practice positions. It surpasses all the different positions of practice to this point, which would be like the 10 dwellings, the 10 practices, the 10 inexhaustible treasuries. Okay, got it. Analogies, nature, and the 10 stages. Likewise, we got another one here. What is it? Comes up, pop. There we go. Here's our analogy. The snowy mountains corresponds to the stage of happiness and that first paramita, giving, generosity. Okay, so we kind of getting a sense of this. With analogies, we have two things. The picture, and then what that picture hopes to convey a sense of, because this side can't be known, how much wisdom the Bodhisattva has. So, okay, Kings of Mountains. I'm going to do one more. Let's do another one. 佛子如香山王，一切诸香，咸集其中，去不可尽。菩萨所住离垢地，亦复如是。 一切菩萨皆恒，唯一显在其中，说不可尽。Disciples of the Buddha, just as the king of mountains, fragrance, contains an endless quantity and variety of fragrant incense, the Bodhisattvas abiding on the stage of leaving defilement is the same, with its endless quantity of Bodhisattva precepts and deportment practices. Okay, number 2, and of the 10, these first two are nature. One is herbs, medicine. 2 is incense, fragrance. The others are jewels. From 3 to 10, those mountains are made of jewels. But these are the first two. They're made of quantities from the earth. Okay? So, second mountain is called... What's it called? Hold on. Second mountain is called... Coming up. Gandhamadana Giriraja. Fragrance. Xiang, Shan, Wang. Right? Incense. It's the beyond defilement, undefiled stage, and it's the second paramita, precepts, morality. Okay? So, getting beyond defilement. Li Go Di. The undefiled stage and the second paramita. Okay, that's the name of it. And what is it like? It contains an endless quantity and variety of fragrant incense. Similarly, on the other side, the Bodhisattva on the stage of leaving defilement has an endless quantity of Bodhisattva precepts and deportment practices. You know what they say? They say, Jie Ding Zhen Xiang. So, precepts and samadhi are truly fragrant, they say. Precepts and samadhi are truly fragrant. So, people will recall, you remember when we looked at some people will recall, we've been explaining the 10 stages for years now, like 4 or 5 years going on. And we were at the second stage, 2018, 2017. Some of you will remember. So what is it about that second stage? Its name is Undefiled, or leaving defilement behind. It's about the Bodhisattva has already learned about generosity. He's able to give. And at this stage, the Bodhisattva wants to learn about recalling outflowing energy, learning how to patch up his or her energy body so they step into their lives, take charge of their eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, and mind, right? The 6 sense organs, and turn them around. It's called the Great Reversal. The turning a river back in its flow downstream. Hard to do, yeah, but it's how you become a Buddha. So, what's our Buddhist terminology for it? Holding precepts, learning how to be disciplined with your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Hard job, but this is where Buddhas come from. So what's cool about the second round, what's unforgettable about the second stage, is the 10 examples of how cause and effect work. And you remember, I think at the time they give an analogy of a garden, and there's a lot of talk about gardens. And it says things like unforgettable, clear teachings on cause and effect. It says, disciples of the Buddha, the offense of killing can actually make you lose your human body if you do it a lot, right? If you come back as a human, it says, suppose it's not so severe and you come back as a human, says there are two retributions. One, a short life, or two, a lot of illness. It's like, it's pretty concrete, pretty clear. Like, how does that work? So the idea is, it says, when we kill, because it's based on cause and effect, this whole system, and two, because we're connected, because our elements, earth, air, fire, and water, are the same in every body. Furthermore, we're connected because we have a Buddha nature inside us that is not different in any creature, from the smallest to the biggest. When we kill, if we, with malice and intent, right, clear and present danger, that's the language we're using in Washington, D.C. If we, with malice and intent, force the life out of somebody's body, we're harming ourselves. It's as if we did it to ourselves. What's the reaction? What is the effect of that cause? Our lives are shortened, or we have a human body but it's not healthy because we killed someone else to whatever degree, right? First time I saw that, it went click. Whoa, that makes perfect sense. Okay, now the sutra doesn't say this, but we flip it around. We went on with Master Hua, said do it this way. The blessing of extending someone's life through fostering, through feeding, through healing when they're sick, but the blessing of extending others' lives has an effect, which is what? Number one, you live longer, or number two, you're really healthy. It's like, well, Sutra doesn't say that second part, but it makes perfect sense. So there we go, that's the second ground's teachings. And then it goes through stealing, sexual misconduct, right? 3 offenses of the body, goes through 4 with the mouth and 3 with the mind. And it's like, remember reading that and just having this clarity of why I had been miserable my whole life around speech. When it got to the 4 offenses of the mouth and speech, it was like, I just saw, it was like looking directly in a mirror. At the time I first read it, I was 26. And the 26 years of my life that or the amount that I'd been conscious and struggling, suddenly was clear. Why? And oh, what an incredible gift to see the sutra tell the story of my life, why I was unhappy, and how to fix it, what to do next if I wanted to change it. So that's one of the gifts of the second stage, DRD, right? The undefiled stage. So again, disciples of the Buddha, just as King of the Mountains, fragrance contains an endless quantity and variety of fragrant incense. The Bodhisattvas abiding on the stage of leaving defilements the same, an endless quantity of Bodhisattva precepts and deportment practices. Okay, now one of the ways to approach this second is, what's the name of the mountain? Fragrance, right? Incense, same word, xiang. One of the ways to interpret this would be to go into incense. And maybe next week we'll do a bit of that. Because we have in our community very developed and mature initiative towards producing incense using domestic materials, using American materials like cedar, right? Like balsam, like pine, and all those goods, as well as using, rare and hard to get materials like sandalwood and things like that from Asia, from India, from places outside of the borders. I wonder what kind of incense materials Australia will produce, right? Gidgee incense. What else? Eucalyptus, gum tree incense. We haven't tried it. Let's try it. Let's check out some of these materials here. But one of our Dharma Buddhist University staffers, Kenny, is hot on the trail of producing incense that takes advantage of some of the resources abundant in the American West, in the East. So yeah, that's underway. We're going to step aside from the sutra right at this point and finish with the mountains next week. Tell some stories about mountains. For example, our teacher, Master Shenhua, was what? He called himself Changbai Shan Seng, the monk from the tall white mountains. The monk from the tall white mountains. Changbai Shan is a range of mountains in Manchuria where he came from. And there are caves in those mountains with famous hermits, and I don't want to say immortals, but that's what they say. I'm just passing on stories. But I have some stories from Zhongnanshan, from my own experience in 1989 in China. And Chinese mountains are famous because Chinese civilization has been there so long. There are mountains and there are people who live in them, who go to the mountains so they can be solitary, be alone, be hermits, be still, and actually merge with nature around them. So there's all this lore, all these legends, true and, of course, exaggerated in some cases, but wonderful, wonderful stories. Our friend Ted Berger took his movie camera out into the mountains amongst white clouds, right? Red Pine. Bill went out and documented those stories, Bill Porter, and then Ted was inspired by that book to go and make a movie. Sure enough, found the stages, the hermits in the mountains. So mountains and spiritual practice go hand in hand. And our Bodhisattva on the 10 stages is now being likened to all these wonderful mountains. So we'll pick that up next week. And after the mountains comes the qualities of the ocean. We're going to find out about that. All right. Indeed. What I would like to share with folks is this. Oh, that's not the one I want. The one I want is here. Here we are. Speaking of mountains, we have Song of Enlightenment. Master Yong大师證道歌. And he, Master Yongjia, of course, Chan monk, spent a lot of time in the mountains, and he refers to animals and nature, rivers, clouds, like that in his song. And as I said, I really wish I could deliver everybody into a 3D immersive, complete experience of the mountains. Here at the Gold Coast, we're blessed with what's called the bush, which is the forest. And it's not mountainous, it's hilly, but it's a rainforest, and just where the monastery is set. And stepping outside this wonderful Buddha hall, give people a little look at it here. You can see how spectacular nature is outside. Of course, it's all sculpted into a garden, but it's green and lush and have multiple families of birds. So anyway, meditation and spiritual pursuits and nature are hand in glove, right? Jiang Hai She Shan Chuan, Sun Shi Fang Dao Wei Zan Zan, Zi Zong Ren De Cao Shi Lu, Yao Zhi Sheng Si Wu Shang Guang. That's Master Hua's tune. We put it in West Virginia. There we are. Sounds terrible. Play it right. Play it right. Okay, we're going to use the melody that we've found called the Blind Fiddler and invite everybody to join me. I know there are some monks online who are familiar with this. Please sing along. It goes. Wandering rivers and mountains, I traveled through the nations. I talked to saints, sought the Tao, and did Chan meditation. And ever since I learned the way to Southern Flower on Sao Shi, I put an end to birth and death. They do not trouble me. Okay, that could come from a mountain with a hermit, right? Wandering rivers and mountains, I traveled through the nations. Talked to saints, I sought the Tao, and did Chan meditation. Ever since I learned the way to Southern Flower on Sao Shi, I put an end to birth and death. They do not trouble me. It's a translation of the Chinese. Here we go. Shifu would say, Ru Shan Shan Zhu Lang Ro, 曾因有岁长松下，悠悠静坐夜僧家，天下安居是潇洒。 And we, from the Appalachians, would say, travel deep into the mountains in a hermitage to dwell. The cliffs are steep, the cedars tall, my home's a shady dell. Walking trails, sitting on rocks, doing what I please. A rustic monk, at one with nature, true and simple ease. Okay, here's our hermit, travels deep in the mountains in a hermitage to dwell. The cliffs are steep, the cedars tall, my home's a shady dell. Walking trails, sitting on rocks, doing what I please. A rustic monk, at one with nature, true and simple ease. Right? You can see it, right? 3D immersion, here we go. Let's see. 江月照，松风吹，永夜今宵何所谓？佛心接住心地音，无路云下体相依。 Bright moon on the river shines, the night breeze stirs the pines. In this clear eternal stillness, let things take their time. Buddha nature's precept pearl, mind ground sets its seal. Mist and dew, rain and fog, hide and now reveal. Right, so here we are, we're on a river coming down from Lake Anavatapta, and we're meditating hearing the rain on our tin roof, overlooking the river. The bright moon on the river shines, the night breeze stirs the pine. In this clear, eternal stillness, let things take their time. Why push the river along? Buddha nature's precept pearl, the mind ground sets its seal. Mist and dew, rain and fog, hide and now reveal. Okay, so this is, here we have rivers and mountains, hermitages, rocks, the moon's reflection on the water, night breeze, etc., right? Then, Master Yong takes us to the animals. 狮子吼，无畏说，百兽闻之皆闹裂，向上奔波是雀尾，天龙寂听上心悦。There it is, the lion's roar, a fearless, awesome sound. 100 beasts and birds in terror tremble on the ground. The big shots and the baddies, they lose their special style. The gods and dragons in the samadhi listen and they smile. Right? What's the lion's roar? It's the roar of Dharma, right? Also, when lions roar, it's the loudest natural sound. It's huge. If you ever stood beside a lion when it roars, everything trembles, right? 100 beasts and birds tremble on the ground. Big shots and the baddies, the tough guys, the snake's heads, right? The gang boss, they lose their style. They don't know what to do. But the gods and dragons, they know this is the Buddha Dharma. They listen and they smile. 禅谈林无杂树，玉米深深是自主，静静林间独自游，走兽飞禽绝远去。Sandalwood forest holds no scrubby weeds. There lives the Lion King deep amid the trees. Tranquil his state in concentration, he strolls within the glade. The birds and beasts show him respect, they vanish in the shade. So here's our Lion King, right? Who is who? The Buddha, of course. And he's in samadhi, strolls around in the glade, but everyone else knows who it is and they run and they tiptoe far away. But the Lion King has cubs. 狮子儿终岁后，3岁便能打小猴。若是也敢足法王，100年妖怪须开口。Okay, what happens? Here we go. Lions, cubs, a lively pack, play on the forest floor. At 3 years old, they can make a grown-up lion's roar. The jackal in his folly tries to pick a fight. The sad old ghost, he limps away, howling in the night. It's the Bainin Yao Guai, 100-year-old goblin, that's what it says. In vain opens his mouth, right? Why? Even the Buddha cubs, studying the Dharma for 3 years, can make that lion's roar sound of Dharma. And of course, the sad old ghost are those who try to find fault with the principles of the Dharma. 狮子吼，无畏说，神说解梦顽皮蛋，是指梵中长菩提，不见如来开秘诀。The lion's roar is a fearless sound. How sad those souls who tune it out and merely fool around. They only know to break the rules and block their future way. They're blind to the methods the Tathagata gave. More in the lion's roar. Last one, this is the last verse of the Song of Enlightenment. This is his summary, but it's got nature in it again. Animals. Ready? Last one. Here we go. 大象不由于途径，大悟不绝于小节。莫将关键棒常常为了无尽为君绝。He says, the mighty elephant won't walk a rabbit's trail. Great awakening won't be held in a measure small and frail. Don't peer through a tube to measure out the sky. I just passed the secret on. You'll get it by and by. All right. That is powerful verse making by Master Yong, Song of Enlightenment, Song of Awakening. Okay, thanks for letting me do that, inflicting you with nature verses from the Song of Awakening. It has 62 total verses. Oh my goodness, you have to kind of comb through it and pick out some things to sing about. Okay, I would like at this point to invite one of the bhikshus online to share with us any announcements or information you might have.
Okay. In terms of the monastery programs, we're actually, everything's the same. Jing Weisher and myself will be starting a retreat tomorrow night on the 4 boundless hearts. If you really want to sign up, now is the time. You can find out the berkeleymonastery.org website.
Hold it. Wait.
Oh.
Wait.
Okay.
Where are we? Here we go, right there.
You got it.
Okay.
Where your screen looks like something.
Right? Oh, did we lose you, Jin Chuan?
Sorry. Okay. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Sorry. Oh, that's strange. Sorry. Huh. Okay. So in terms of the 4 Boundless Hearts retreat, if you just go down the website, you'll see it's January 10th to the 17th, and it's starting tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. You can still sign up, but you have to sign up and fill out the form ASAP if you want to join. It's for 1 week, and it's a chance to learn loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. We actually have over 100 people signed up right now, so quite a lot of people. In addition to that, Rav Heng Sure is continuing with his interfaith and intrafaith talks as usual on Friday afternoons at 12:30. Stephen Tainer will be starting up his class on the 6 perfections this upcoming week as well, January 13th, Wednesday night. Marty is not sure, but he was currently planned to start early February. And I also, maybe just to mention, Rav Heng Sure has brought it up a number of times. Madalena has been having a series of talks on Venerable Master's teachings and stories, and that's on Saturday at 4 p.m. They're trying to write an event page for our monastery, so hopefully that'll be get up in the near future. So if people are interested, you can also, if you're really interested in that, please just sign up on the contact form for Berkeley Monastery, and we'll send you the information for that. Otherwise, that's our programs.
Alrighty. Okay, appreciate that. I did want to pass on, I got the word that our beloved elder, Mr. Ha, Lap Ha, has passed away. Jin Chuan, do you know how old? Was he 90? How old
Yeah,
was
let me, I know, I'm sure somebody knows, probably online, let's see.
Yeah, Mr. Ha was, his image is very fresh in my mind. He is a revered elder of the Vietnamese Buddhist community of Berkeley Monastery and DRBA. On my pilgrimage, he and his wife, Goren, drove sometimes 8 hours to deliver a hot lunch to us on the road. So came up from Los Angeles and found us many times. Sometimes they didn't, but they kept us alive on our pilgrimage. And he would come week after week at the Berkeley Monastery, and when we asked someone from the lay community to say a few words of Dharma, he would speak up in French or Vietnamese or English, and just everybody loved Mr. Ha's talks and his memories of Vietnam in its splendor, other than war, the culture of Vietnam and the peaceful joy of Buddhism in Vietnam, and how wonderful. So he has gone off to the Pure Land, no doubt. I will be transferring merit on his behalf, and later we'll be doing a memorial service for him later. So we are transferring merit using the mantra of Medicine Buddha now, because 4,000 people a day are dying in America because of COVID-19, and countries around the world not as severe as the US, but are also in the grip of coronavirus. So this is a chance to send out some alternative good energy. Jin Chuan, did you get a response?
I didn't. I would try to ask somebody, but no one told me.
He was a nonagenarian, not quite 100, but close. So, yeah. Alrighty, so let us transfer the merit. Let me ask first, how many people did we have online on the Chinese side? 58, 82 Chinese listeners in Chinese. Appreciate that help in translation. 151 on YouTube, and the Vietnamese channel probably had between 30 and 40. All right. Grateful for all of you being here and our friends who are here in person. Please make a wish to send out this energy. Here we go. Ready? Om Namo Bhagavate Vaidurya Prabharajaya Tathagata Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Adhyata Vaisajya Samugate Swaha Om Namo Bhagavate Vaisajya Guru Vaidurya Prabharajaya Tathagata Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Adhyata Om Vaisajya Samudgate Swaha. Last time. Om Namo Bhagavate Vaisajya Guru Vaidurya Prabharajaya Tathagataya Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Adhyata Om Vaisajya Samudgate Swaha. So until next week, keep that energy moving. And I'll ring the bell 3 times, invite everybody to join me in bowing to the Buddhist and bowing to Master Hua. Here we go. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Amitofo.